Genocide is a very specific term with a specific legal meaning. What's the basis of this warning?
Well, yes, indeed. And we were very, very careful in choosing the words we have used. I want to notice that we use the word, many of us, special rapporteurs, use the word genocide already calling for the prevention of genocide on the 19th of October. And I have personally denounced the intention to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip 1 week earlier. And we had already, 32 or 33 special rapporteurs had already denounced what was happening in Gaza since the very first days of the bombing. So there has been an escalation of violence, which has also pushed us, independent experts, to be a strong voice warning against what might happen. We don't want cries after the disaster, after a catastrophe, after atrocities have been committed. We want the international community to act to prevent. And yes, we have used the word genocide, which is the intention to destroy in total or in part a group, a national, an ethnic or religious group. And look at the intent. Since the 7th of October, Israeli political leaders and military leaders have called for the erasure of Gaza. They have stressed that in Gaza there are not civilians, there are animals, that they are all terrorists.
Let me just challenge you on that because I've listened very carefully to many statements. And in fact, consistently they've called for the erasure of Hamas, not of the Palestinian people. There is a distinction there, and Hamas is a terrorist organisation that wreaked terror on Israelis, killing scores of them. Was that not a genocidal act?
No, Patricia. There is, for example, there is a current Likud member, a member of parliament, who's the former minister for diplomacy, who has called for the erasure of Gaza from the face of the earth. And others before her have insisted, including the IDF spokesperson, since the very early hours of the offensive in Gaza, when not many but still, a significant number of people in Gaza had been killed. The emphasis, it was said, was on destruction, not on accuracy. And frankly, we are not just looking at the intention. 9,000 people have been killed. And these are also the figures that are related. I mean, I understand that Hamas might not be a reliable source, but Hamas is not just the armed wing which has carried out heinous attacks, criminal acts against the Israelis. Hamas is also the de facto authority which has run Gaza, and there are United Nations in Gaza who have not challenged those data because the destruction is massive. Okay. So if you think the 9,000 people have been killed, this is the same number of people which has been killed in the confrontation of two military armies in 19 months in Russia, Ukraine. The number is shocking, and this is more than the people who have been killed in Srebrenica.
There is no doubt that people are concerned about lots of civilian deaths, but I just want to go back to your statement. Last week, Israel's mission to the United Nations criticised your statements on the conflict. They questioned comments you made actually on Facebook where you said Europe had guilt about the Holocaust. Do you regret those comments?
I've never. The only comment that I made, is that during the 2014 offensive against Gaza, which was the third war in a few years, now we are at the sixth, that war had killed 2,500 people, including, can't remember, I think 500 kids. And I was shocked. So I criticized the blockage in the West to criticize what Israel was doing. And I referred to the influence of the Jewish lobby instead of saying pro-Israel lobby. Yeah, of course I do regret, because saying Jewish lobby is not accurate.
No, and you can see it leads to anti-Semitism. It leads to anti-Semitism, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. Because I had just spent 3 years in Palestine, and this is the way, including Israelis, refer to it. So I accept and I regret and I apologize for the use of Jewish lobby, but the concept remains the same. I was referring to the pro-Israel lobby. It's not anti-Semitic in this sense. And again, Look, as I said to the Israeli representative who criticized me, I mean, you want to go back to something I said 10 years ago without challenging any of the facts I bring in my reports? No one wins. Let's talk about the facts. Correct me on any of the facts which are wrong. And in fact, they are not. And even Israelis, many in Israel, including, especially now, and all the human rights organizations and Jewish scholars themselves have come out in my defense, because it's clearly, this is a way to deflect the attention from what it matters.
I just want to go back to, obviously, Israelis feel under immense pressure at the moment because of Hamas being at their doorstep after the brutality. You've previously spoken to us about the heinous crimes. Hamas is an organisation with a stated goal of wiping out Israel, which would also amount to genocide. Do you also condemn Hamas for its genocidal intent?
I do. And in fact, again, I keep on pointing to the fact that Hamas politically has been a liability for the Palestinians first and foremost. And I'm shocked at what I hear Hamas leaders saying from wherever they are in Doha or whatever, while the Palestinian people are paying the brunt for their crazy statements, because clearly they are not in Gaza. I can see that from the way they speak and the access to internet that they have, they are not in Gaza, because I've lost contact with all the people I knew from the human rights community. They don't have electricity. They cannot recharge their phones. So yes, I do hold Hamas responsible for the heinous statements that they put out, which are not different in a way from the heinous statements than many Israeli leaders put out. At the same time, I want to remind everyone of the fact that until a few months ago, and steadily since the 2019, Netanyahu and his fellow ministers in the current government have referred to Hamas as an asset for Israel. And Hamas has been, and this is on record, there are scholarly studies on this that prove that Hamas, since Israel was the occupying power with presence, boots on the ground in Gaza and with colonies in Gaza, they have allowed support and financial support to come in for Hamas as a way to split the Palestinian secular movement. This is extremely serious and cannot be taken out. So they are responsible for creating an entity which is a monster, including for the Palestinian people.
Just finally, I know you need to go, but just there is a call from President Biden for a pause. You've gone a lot further in the statement you've signed with the other special rapporteurs. Do you welcome the call for a pause?
Look, I've asked for a ceasefire together with 33 or 34 special rapporteurs since the first week, in the interest of the civilians, which we knew would die, but also the hostages. You know that Israeli hostages have been killed by the bombing, because not all of them are in tunnels. Clearly, there were hostages apparently in Jabalia camp. This is atrocious. No one should go with it. So I do feel for anyone who's suffering the current volatile and violent environment, but also we should not forget what is happening, Patricia, in the West Bank, where 120 Palestinians have been killed in less than 2 weeks, and thousands of them have been arbitrarily arrested. And there is an incredible violence which goes absolutely unreported. I mean, the verified scenes, verified by Israeli former soldiers that I've received out of pogroms remind me of Abu Ghraib, horrible, horrible scenes. And these must be stopped. We need a ceasefire and we need a protective presence, which allows for the demilitarization of Hamas, but also for the end of the occupation, because until the occupation and the oppression of the Palestinian people remains a living reality for the Palestinian, there won't be peace. There won't be stability for anyone, neither the Palestinians nor the Israelis.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Patricia.
Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights situation in the Palestinian territories. Now, we spoke to her because this morning in breaking news, She's one of 7 who signed a statement, which is a pretty significant statement. 7 United Nations rapporteurs warning that Palestinian civilians are at grave risk of genocide from the ongoing Israeli Defence Force operation in Gaza.